seriously need your take on telepathy and other clairvoyance. I don't want that. I don't know that the CIA would spend so much money on it if there was nothing to it. Well, I'll tell you, and this is going to be, we're going to try to deal with this a little bit in the upcoming series on Epstein that we're doing, but the post-World War II era was insane. And I'm talking about there was all kinds of things imaginable happening, and it was all occult related. I'll tell you why. The reason that these things were going on is because towards the end of the war, and some of this stuff is in the lost hour of Third Atom 4, which I have on a hard drive, and I'm not even sure really what to do with it. At the end of World War II, you have kind of all the things that were going on underground and behind closed doors that the Germans were doing during that time kind of started coming to come to light. And towards the end of the war, there was a lot of scientists and a lot of high-ups in that regime who knew that this wasn't going to end in their favor, and so they started cutting deals, which is very common in an all-out war. If you go look up something called Operation Paperclip, the United States of America cut deals with German scientists and German officers. Okay, you're working on these Saturn V2 rockets. Why don't you just take all that research, grab it up, and come with us, and we'll pardon you, and you just come work for the United States. One of the men who did that and took that deal was a man named Wernher von Braun, who I've actually been to the Air and Space Museum in North Alabama. I'm probably going to go there again, and I'm going to see if I can squeeze it in there to go down there and film for Third Atom 5, because this is going to be in the film. So Operation Paperclip, Wernher von Braun, he was developing rockets on the East Coast, and you got Jack Parsons out there on the West Coast who's developing rockets. Jack Parsons was a arch occultist, but Wernher von Braun was no Sunday school teacher either. And you have to understand that it was the belief at the time that the technology that the Germans had in World War II, which, by the way, was better than everybody else's, okay? They had so much better stuff, it was unbelievable. The technological advances that the Germans had during World War II, at the time they believed that it was credited to their ability to understand the occult and go into the third realm and go into some astral projection or some sort of spiritual experience of some sort that caused them to come back with a higher level of consciousness, a smarter mind, and the ability to further understand the secrets of the universe so that they could apply that technology into day-to-day life. In other words, the German scientists were occultists. That is a fact of history. And as the Russians got a hold of some of these scientists, and as the Americans got a hold of some of these scientists sat down with them and said, "Yeah, this is what we're doing. We're taking children and we're putting them in laboratories and we're giving them substances, if you will. Let's just call it that way. And these children are developing psychic powers as a result of that." That's what the Russians were doing. Okay, well. The Russians back in the Soviet USSR time, man, there was no Geneva Convention. Are you kidding me? These people are absolutely, these people were just as bad as the Germans were. I mean, human experiments, all kinds of stuff like that. And the idea is that the Russians are teaching and learning the secrets of the universe, and they believe that, matter of fact, there's stories back towards the end of World War II that the United States government and even the Russians were experimenting with teleporting technology, where they could teleport entire battleships across the country or across the world. And so Russia was doing all that. They were experimenting with all that, and America realized, oh my goodness, the Russians are doing this. We got to do it too. But the problem is that it was so taboo, and it was so it was so sketchy and kind of, it was kind of like Christian evangelical John R. Rice Americans are not going to be okay with this. So they had to put it in underground. They had to kind of make it top secret. This is where things like the MK Ultra program kind of came to be. And there's Project Montauk or whatever it was called. There was a lot of this where basically they were just saying, hey, is there something to this? Can we give LSD or truth serum or something to people, and that opens up their third eye, and they can actually go into the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, and they can see things and all that right there. Can they do that? Is this a thing? Now, I'm going to tell you this. I had somebody years ago reach out to me and say, Brother Spencer, I want to talk to you. And we got on the phone, and it was totally off the record. They told me I could say what they said, but they didn't want to be a part of it. They didn't want to be in the public. They didn't want to be, known or whatever. And I said, that's fine. And this person told me who they were, and I looked them up, checked out. They're actually a member of a church, and they go to they're like-minded people. So this was not some fringe nut that was trying to talk to me, but they told me, said, okay, me and my husband got involved with a group of people when we had just gotten married. We're like 21, 22. We're very young, very naive, very vulnerable. We got into a group of people. We thought it was like a multi-level marketing thing, but it turns out it wasn't. Turns out it was some sort of spiritual thing behind it. And it started with things like yoga and breath work and whatever. And then next thing you know, we're, instead of being 21, 23, we're actually 24, 25. And it dawned on me one day, I'm in the occult. And she got to where it started to bother. Like she would have nightmares at night, and she would be really she would hear things. She just would, just like stuff would bother her. And so she went to the people that was causing, that were like her spiritual mentors and all this, and saying, hey, this is really not working. Something's wrong. And their answer was, well, you need to go a little bit deeper into this. You're kind of teetering in between one level, level 4 and level 5. You need to go to level 6. So let's try to push you a little bit deeper into this. So she got involved with like a mentor, and a mentor was a woman, and turns out the woman was like a witch, basically. And she said that I learned, I got even deeper and deeper into this stuff. And she said, I got to where I could hear my neighbor's thoughts in the house next door. And she said, astral projecting you could do it all the time. And she said that, I could do it. She said, but it got to where it scared me because, she said, you could go to the mall and you could hear the man 2 tables over to you in the eatery. And you could hear in his mind that he was here to find children. And you knew that's why he was here. And it creeped you out, and there's nothing you could do about it. And the problem is, and a lot of times, this isn't pulpit preaching. This is stuff that's like, people don't say this stuff out loud, but and they don't like to talk about it because it's like a ghost story, and people don't believe that this is real. I believe it's very real. I emphatically believe this stuff is real. And I told her, I said, so it sounds like it's this person. I said, man, it sounds like X-Men. And this person told me, said, that's exactly what it is. It is just like that. They have these, special places where you can go to where you can learn to hone this stuff and whatever. It's just really bizarre stuff. It's really bizarre. So, there are people on this planet who claim they can do that stuff. And I know a lot of them are like these fake sleight of hand guys, okay? I watched a documentary the other day. it was this old man. He could like I forget what it was, but he could spot the frauds and like the sleight of hand fake magicians and stuff like that. He was really good at it. I forget his name, but there's a lot of sleight of hand people. But there are people out there who literally have, at least they claim to have like telepathy, and they can do stuff like that. So if you're the government and you have these people who claim they can do this stuff, it is incumbent upon you to kind of like look into that. And that's why the CIA, that's why they spent a lot of money on it, because they were trying to find out if this was real. Did they find out if it was real? Well, if they did, they would never tell you. They would never tell you that stuff. They would never let that be known. Because if you could do that, then, I mean, you know, it's nuts. But I tell you, there's no real need for psychics anymore. There's no real need for that, because if you have a cell phone, the government knows everything there is to know about you. Like, the government knows, I mean, like, have you ever, like, thought about something? Like, man, it sure would be good to have some good broccoli or something, you know, just something stupid like that. And the next thing you know, you're getting Facebook ads for it, and you didn't say it, you just thought it. Okay? It's all right here, bro. It's all, I mean, the algorithms are so sophisticated now, it's almost like this is an obsolete topic. So, yeah, that's the answer to that. That's why they spend so much money on it. Because they were trying to look into it. The Russians were spending a lot of money on it because they were trying to find out if there was something to it. Matter of fact, there was a theory out there. Joseph Stalin was trying to merge human DNA with ape DNA to try to do like a Planet of the Apes type thing, so he could create like a superhuman ape soldier. That's a real thing. And by the way, if you don't think China's still doing stuff like that right now, you're crazy. You know, like, have you ever seen in the news how that, like, Chinese scientists come up with grow human ear in the back of a mouse? Y'all ever seen stuff like that? It's because they're doing this weird stuff. If we knew the science experiments and the weird stuff that the government is doing behind closed doors, you would be blown away. Matter of fact, if you don't believe that, I mean, Anthony Fauci was doing gain of function research in COVID. COVID was a weapon that got out, and it cost us all like 2 years of our life. Like, you know, that was a weapon, right? That's what it was. Why are they making these things? You would be blown away with what is going on behind the closed doors and these deals right there.